I never thought much of the disused railway track behind my house until the summer of 2016, when a series of unnerving events made me question how much I really understood about my quiet suburban neighborhood. The tracks sit about 100 meters from the back of our property, partially obscured by a tangle of overgrown bushes and tall grasses. They're remnants of a once busy line that served the local industrial area, abandoned now for decades. Growing up, it was the go-to place for the local kids to play. My parents always warned against it, citing the dangers of old, rusting infrastructure, but like most warnings, it rarely stopped us. The summer I was 25, I had just returned home to live with my parents while studying for the bar exam. I spent long days hunched over books in my room, indulging in the occasional distraction of staring out my window, where I could just make out the track if I tilted my head at the right angle. One sweltering afternoon, during one of these distraction breaks, I noticed something odd. Among the thick greenery, I caught a flicker of movement. There, in an area of the track that was nearly inaccessible due to a collapsed portion, stood a man. He was barely discernible through the branches, motionless except for the slight swaying that the intense heat seemed to be causing. A rogue thrill coursed through me, the kind that mixes fear with inexplicable curiosity. Over the next week, the sightings became more frequent. Each time he stood in relatively the same spot, always at a distance, always still. I considered telling my parents but decided against it, fearing what sounded like childish paranoia. As the summer dragged on under a relentless sun, something peculiar began happening at night. I'd hear it just as I was about to fall asleep, a metallic clink-clink, repeating rhythmically, echoing faintly through the quiet. It was a sound reminiscent of trains, yet entirely out of place in the dead silence of the abandoned track. One night, I grabbed my flashlight, unable to quell my curiosity, and headed outside. I let my ears guide me, following the soft reverberation through our yard, across the small creek, into the encroaching wilderness of the neglected railway. The song of crickets emphasized the quiet, only interrupted by my careful steps over snapping twigs. I reached the tracks and followed them down to where the man had been standing during the day. Now, under the pale moonlight, the place felt ethereal, the air curdling with an unsettling energy. Suddenly, I froze. A new sound emerged, the crunch of gravel beneath slow, measured footsteps. I squinted into the darkness, and then, just at the edge of the light from my trembling flashlight, I saw the man again. This time, he was closer, standing with an unnatural poise, eyes reflecting the beam like an animal caught in the night. Fear iced through my veins. I swallowed, backing up slowly, all too aware of the loudness of my careless steps. But the man didn't move, he simply watched, an unyielding presence that felt profoundly wrong. I stumbled as I turned to flee, my heart pounding in sync with my frantic pulse, not stopping until the familiar warmth of home enveloped me. The clinking continued each night after that, even more pronounced, but I resolutely stayed in bed, dread replacing curiosity. I researched and found nothing about the railroad to explain its haunting reputation. It was as if even the history surrounding it had been intentionally forgotten. Then, one humid evening, as a storm threatened to break, my parents decided to attend a late-night neighborhood meeting. Left alone in the house, I couldn't shake the sensation of being watched. Checking the locks became a ritual, as did glancing nervously out the window every few minutes. On my fifth lap around the house, I paused at the kitchen window. There, past the stretch of our backyard, amidst the outlines of trees swaying under the rumbling sky, I saw him again. Closer, now, standing where the yard met the wild. His gaze was unmistakably directed toward me. A palpable connection formed through the glass despite the expanse that lay between. Lightning fractured the sky, illuminating the scene with a harsh brilliance. He was gone. I blinked against the ghostly afterimage burned into my vision, heart thundering louder than the storm. Throughout the night, the house groaned and creaked, buffeted by the elements. Each sound heightened my nerves until the storm finally passed and a tense silence enveloped the neighborhood. I hardly slept. My parents expressed mild concern about my deteriorating demeanor the next day, but I brushed them off, attributing it to exam stress. Yet their reassurances did little to soothe the instinctual fear burgeoning inside me. Maybe it's a drifter, I tried to rationalize. Someone down on their luck, taking shelter where they could. But deep down, I didn't truly believe it. On one particularly oppressive afternoon, everything changed. The metallic clinking didn't wait for nightfall this time. It began in the middle of the day, an intrusive sound that dared me to investigate. Clutching the flashlight, unnecessary in the midday light, I ventured once more to the tracks. The afternoon was hot, the sun blazing through the oppressive humidity. Sweat beaded on my forehead as I maneuvered past the prickling underbrush. I reached the place, the collapsed section where the trees seemed to crouch like old sentinels. The noise had stopped, replaced by a deeper, unsettling silence. Suddenly, twigs snapped underfoot, a deliberate, slow crunch. Behind me, I whirled around, brandishing the flashlight as if its beam might still deter whatever stood there. But it was just a squirrel scurrying away, disturbed by my presence. I let out the breath I didn't realize I was holding and leaned against a derelict rail. That's when I saw it, a small rectangular object wedged into the gravel at my feet. A cassette tape. The absurdity of it jarred me, transportive to another era, the realization punctuated by the oppressive atmosphere around me. Instinctively, I picked it up, noting the initials JT scribbled in careful handwriting. The initials meant nothing to me, yet they crackled with importance. Back home, I rummaged through old boxes until I found an old Walkman my parents had kept. Desperation mingled with curiosity as I slipped the tape in, closed the lid, and pressed play. There were no voices, no revelations, just that same rhythmic clink-clink that had haunted my nights, muffled but unmistakably familiar. But beneath it was something else, something that raised the hair on the back of my neck, a faint, repetitive whisper, indiscernible, yet undeniably human, unnervingly constant. A chilling idea seized me. I decided then that I had to get to the roots of this, whatever it was. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was trying to tell me something. I spent the next few days combing through town records, reaching out discreetly to longtime residents, attempting to peel back the layers of my neighborhood's history. I pieced together fragments of stories, embellished by time and recounting, hints of a dark past lingering like shadows. The track had been the scene of a horrific accident nearly 50 years ago, a train derailment attributed to systemic neglect and a fatal oversight. Official reports detailed fatalities, mostly workers heading home, leaving a permanent scar on the community's memory, but none could recall the existence of a JT. The more I discovered, the heavier a sense of impending confrontation settled in my chest. I had to go back one last time. Fear told me it was reckless, irrational, yet I felt the distinct pull of inevitability. That evening, I ventured deeper into the overgrowth than I ever had. Time stretched unyieldingly as the trees closed in around me. I noticed things I had missed before, inexplicable murmurs of presence, the atmosphere tight, air-laden with static anticipation. The sky turned a bruised purplish gray, the kind that precedes a summer storm. My feet found the track, and at the spot where the cassette had been, where the man often lingered, I sank to my knees. There was nothing there but silence, the ambient noise absorbed by the thickening air. Then I heard it, a faint rustle like fabric against brush. When I looked up, he was there again, his silhouette even more defined in the dwindling light. Eyes meeting, an understanding passed, a tether that broke through fear, a forlorn urgency that sought acknowledgement. A scatter of thoughts washed over me, pieces of a past not fully my own yet calling for resolution, an end to the tale that had been forgotten in the annals of local lore. And just like that, as abruptly as he had come, he was gone. I rushed forward, feeling beneath the soft earth where he'd stood, desperate for a clue, a token. What my hand grasped was deceptively mundane, a rusted train conductor's badge, initials etched delicately, JT. The storm broke above, a shattering crack that matched the thunderstorms raging inside my mind, the air singing with residual vibrations. I turned homeward, the badge heavy in my pocket, understanding seeping like rain into the thirsty ground of realization. I never saw the man again. But each night, I would still hear the clinking, softer now, more distant, like a lullaby fading into memory. I think of it often, a reminder of a past striving to be seen, to be acknowledged. Time's relentless flow will perhaps erode these moments into whispers of imagination, but to me they were real and undeniably intertwined with the quiet pulse of my neighborhood. Some stories linger, not in the recorded pages of history, but in the murmurs that drift with the wind, half-heard melodies that sing through the cracks of the mundane. And sometimes if you listen, they reach out, yearning to be found by those who dare to hear.